they're kind of saying survival game dead in service of what? More promising projects is essentially how they put it. Look, I think I know what that means. I think it basically just means more games in the Warcraft franchise.
Hopefully, because I guess it boils down to does the value lie in Blizzard games? And does it look like the value lies in existing IP that people are comfortable with and will buy? Because if you're thinking about it from the risk perspective, new IP is inherently risk. New IP used to not be very risky because game projects were a couple quid, and if you had someone who brought in donuts from Greg's in the morning, that would do most of the work for you.
John Carmack's just there, like, furiously making 3 video games a day.
Yeah, like you want to just make some video games, you could get a load of boys down the pub and sort it out. Like,
it's that easy.
Yeah, which is obviously not true at all. But the you think about the glory days, and it's interesting we're talking about Activision and Blizzard, because Activision were the kings of that. They're just like, fuck it, let's just do some stuff. And it turned out great, and everyone had a great time, mostly. And you're like, that's actually kind of cool. You could make PS2 games for a couple $100,000 probably, and that'd do you all right. But now video games are only worth it if they have 70 billion players. So if you want to make a game that everyone on the planet will play, then you need to make sure that happens, which means you need the biggest content, the most perfect thing of all time. And you can't assure that with a small team. You can't make sure of that without a billion years in pre-production, nailing every single thing down perfectly, and then 100 years iterating, and $400 million in a team of 250 or 300 people working themselves into the abyss. Never mind also all of the extra people all the extra outsourcing art, because you've just given Lemon Sky like 10 mil, and they're like, yep, we will have our legions create art for you, work away, no problem. And then that's why this stuff is like, the risk involved means that, well, how do you counter risk? You put more resources in, then it gets slightly less risky, except it doesn't, because that's not how video games work. And then came Palworld. Exactly.
Yeah.
10 grand, a load of boys, someone who's never worked on a game before, but they found a gun nut down the shop, went, fuck it, come on ahead, make some guns for us, big man. Okay, no worries. What's that? Version control? Don't know what that is. What's that? We haven't renamed any of our Unreal Engine executables. We don't know what anything is. Fuck, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, because we just made the thing we want.
There is a point in that.
And it is ultimately the cost of video games is way, 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 way too high. Baldur's Gate 3 is an interesting one because that was an expensive game. That was a very expensive game. It just doesn't feel like it because it feels like it was made by humans. Specialization
is like a large part of your reason there. It's like, well, even it's just the concept of comparative advantage. People are like, why aren't we building automobiles in the UK? And the answer is, we'll do it cheaper over there. And they're more specialized, and they're doing it at a bigger scale, and this and that and that. So comparative advantage is something to think about. In making Baldur's Gate 3, Larian could probably make it cheaper than most other companies.
Yeah.
Reason being, not because Larian's in a place where it's cheaper to work, no. Reason being, they can work more efficiently on it because they have accrued a lot of skill and experience, and they have retained staff who are good at doing specifically that, because people don't, you've got like Divinity Dragon Commander, and then Original Sin, and then Original Sin 2. It's like, they made 3 hit CRPGs in a row. Oh, wow. It's almost as if they tried to specialize in a thing and do it really well, and then people liked it a lot.
And that's where Blizzard had expertise back in the day. Blizzard were the RTS people. And they and then they made an RTS, and everyone was like, oh my god, this is crack. This is absolutely the god's nectar of RTS goodness. Fantastic. You'll never beat StarCraft Brood War. StarCraft 2. But,
I think you mean orcs in space.
Yeah, and they were very good at, all of that. They were very good at the things they did. They were good at Warcraft. And
that's why I bring up orcs in space, because that's initially what people at not EGX, the one, E3, that's E3, what people, they were like, this is orcs in space. And then they change up, some of the StarCraft formula, and people are like, oh my god, this is great. So it's like Blizzard, they then learned, okay, well, we can't just do the same thing. We gotta change it up a little bit, and then they did. And then when they're moving into Diablo, think about that as well. Now, of course, Diablo, Blizzard North, so it's like, different team and stuff, but you can imagine, oh, look at the sorts of art that you are making for Warcraft and a StarCraft, and think about what Diablo looks like. You're like, oh my god, it's almost as if you're doing similar things.
Unbelievable.
Do you remember an action RPG, like, just thinking about Diablo 1 compared to, like, you know, insane big flashy loot Adderall?
Yeah, ARPGs, very no, I guess they were already dopamine dispensers. It's just they added more dopamine dispensary to it. They added different avenues of it, where you'd be playing Lost Ark and you'd have the happy dopamine of loot dropping, but you also have the happy dopamine of this is an entirely new setting in the middle of my story for some reason. What's going on? That's a bit unfair. But like Diablo 4, yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit of like, again, there's actually something with Diablo 4. Diablo 4 is probably way more expensive than it ever needed to be. In terms of how in terms of how all high fidelity the assets are and how gorgeous it is and how much all the cutscenes, the story were there. Well, I thought it was mostly fine, but still, you're like, you probably could have gotten, you know, how many people have played more Halls of Torment than Diablo 4?
So I almost think about, like, compare, like, the ratio of cost to build versus hours of gameplay in a game like a D4, and then people will think, why did you make this entire open world? Why did you just not make the tile set plus dungeons? Because that's what people are going to play.
Yeah. You put a decent wrapper on it, but you don't have to put a wrapper on it that's like 100 years in development and $500 million, which obviously I exaggerate because I don't remember the numbers, but they were big numbers is the point.
Well, even, this is a hilarious point, right? And like, this is not to be all like, CAC Seeth, but think about the Pal World sales. Now, remember that Spider-Man 2, a game that cost like $320 or something like that, $1 million, it needed to sell 7 million copies at full price to break even. Now, in fairness, the full prices of these games are very different. Pal World is like half the cost, but I think its sales may end up making up for that. Point basically is, like, Spider-Man 2 was so expensive to make that they have been utterly bodied by Pal World in profitability.
To be fair, Pal World is definitely a bit of an exception in terms of being this absolute laser focused hit of everyone wants this and no one's bothered to make it yet. Here's $1 billion.
I just think, like, why do we not try to make Valheims? Like, imagine if Blizzard going into survival game thought, we'll do a Valheim instead of, we will do a Valheim with 4 A's attached. It will be the most AAA Valheim.
We will finally get Valheim. at long last, what everyone wanted. Everyone who bought Valheim played Valheim, and man went, damn, what if this had more bloom and more polygons? And then I would like it more. Absolutely everyone. That was the resounding feedback, was this game's low poly art style that actually made it very production friendly and also look very charming. No, I need this to be photorealistic or I'll scream. Yeah, so like
people are like, if Kratos uses the same animation to perform the same task in the follow-up game, I will shit myself and die.
Yeah, like even...
I know that's like one person that all of Twitter clowned on, but, you know, it's reducio ad absurdum.
Yeah, even like Spider-Man 2 got into some of that shit of people being like, the asset reuse. Like, that game still cost $320 million because it was a video game and also a movie at the same time. And you know what the best part is? Now, I haven't bought Pal World because I don't give a shit about survival games. I just want to read and have stories. I've become I'm off in my little corner reading VNs now. But like God intended for me always. But like, I liked Spider-Man. I thought the Spider-Man game was very fun and very good. And then they were like, here's a second one for £70. And you know what my answer was, or my response to that was? I'm good, thank you. No, I'm okay, actually. I will wait for it to be on PS Plus. Because it's a PS5 game, it's not going to drop in price. I ain't going to wait for that to be in PS Plus in like a year or two. And that's a case of you just spend loads of money making an experience that isn't really worth it to me. And I'm a big fan of Insomniac, and I'm a big fan of their action games. I think Spider-Man was one of the most fun action games I like played in a while in totality, and the open world was nice stuff, and I like Miles Morales enough. But I'm still just like, nah, I'm okay. I am good. I will not have that. I will give 30, 40 quid any day of the week to a smaller game that's a little bit more interesting. Like I spent 40 quid on Under Night in Birth 2, Celeste there. And I was like, that's good. That's worth it to me. That's the fun-ass fighting game because it's got a fun core loop. And it's not burdened down with loads of stuff.
Mm.
And they didn't charge me 60, 70 quid for it. Because French bread of like 14 people were like, well, that's all we need to make a fighting game, right? We don't need to have an incredible massive story mode or a movie attached to it. We can just make the game and it'll be what it is. And you're like, cool, sweet. So there's a world where maybe if Blizzard weren't so far up their own asses with being the best of all time, like they were with Project Titan, and wanting to make Overwatch this perfect, amazing, brilliant thing. And that's one of the things that, like, Overwatch was kind of a salvage success because they went,
yeah,
we've got all of this shit. Fucking PvP hero shooter.
Pulling.
It's fine. And everyone went, this is a thing. And it fits in a very small box. But I like the thing inside the small box, and it looks good. Obviously, like, it did look good, and that helped as well. But it was like, it was really perfectly crafted as this bit of, obviously people might disagree balance wise.
Great example of a proprietary engine as well.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Oh, wow. Like, Overwatch still feels stunningly smooth.
Yeah, like I didn't mention when you were talking about earlier, but Capcom are a good example of doing that really well. Their RE engine is like, here's a load of games that are what they are, and everyone plays them really well, and they spend years perfecting that. After they lost deep down to the bullshit of MT frameworks, and their last engine been terrible and horrible for most cases, and then they went, we'll do it again, but right this time, and they did. And then Capcom been pumping out winners.
And we're all thrilled that Square Enix have learned that lesson.
Yes, I think I hate Square Enix. I love their output and their devs, but I hate Square Enix with a passion.
So what the effect whenever they activate their shields in Dune, the new Dunes. I imagine that's what your soul does whenever that feeling, we call it like, oh, someone stepped in my grave. You know when your body just randomly goes, ugh, and you don't know why. Or I think men commonly sort of know it as like the post-piss shivers, which apparently is a big thing. You're like, what? So anyway, whenever I mention Square Enix, I just imagine your whole soul going.
It does, yeah. It does, because it's that reason. But like, there's a world where if Blizzard weren't so far up their asses, they could have done the Valheim version of the survival game. They could have went, how do we make this as unique and as effective as possible? But instead, they probably sat down and went, what if we spend billions of dollars? Not billions, like, what if we spend $100 million immediately and see what happens? We need 250 staff to build this game. And they're like, do you really? Could you not have thought of a way to do this for a little bit cheaper? Or are you all just all in this collective executive delusion over games needing to be massive and huge? Because you kind of argue, well, but what if Blizzard released a trailer and it didn't look very good? And then a load of pundits online would say, well, this doesn't look very good. But then if they release it, everyone goes, well, that's fun as fuck. And people would be like, all right, fun. I'll buy that. I'll play that. But none of them have any capacity of like, they don't have the courage to make a decision because, and this is where I go back to the other time where it's like, people don't have they want to get rid of the risk. And they get rid of the risk by relying on things that they can see, such as fidelity and graphics and amount of content. And they're like, look at those. Those are objectively measurable things.
Our marketing spend will go zoom, zoom. If a big, look at Aiden Pierce and his iconic hat and amazing, totally real and shippable visual effects.
Yeah, like that's the kind of stuff you want to see. You want to see what
That's Watch Dogs one. I just remember not everybody may know who Aiden Pierce is, the iconic video game character.
Yeah, so there is a world where Blizzard did this a bit smarter.